And I think that's the biggest shift that people don't really realize until they get into business is to be successful, you have to stop thinking about 9 to 6 and you got to start thinking about, again, not always working, but you got to be thinking about your business pretty much all the time, especially in the first 18, 36 months. And so my biggest advice is if you're going to get into business, yes, there are things you can run more semi-involved or less day to day, but you better be ready to be mentally thinking about a business all the time because it's going to take up a lot of your thought space.
That's awesome. I like the way you broke that down because that makes a lot of sense. You guys are the fastest growing restoration franchise.
To me, what we do with floor cleaning is we're building predictable revenue. We're getting out there into the field. We're doing jobs. We're cleaning homes. We're getting the trucks out on the road. And that's leading and feeding to more restoration jobs, which are very profitable, but take a little bit more time to get.
That's awesome, right? Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to get into franchising and, it's going to be easy. And like, it's not, right? That's why there's some franchisees that fail. It's not everybody wins just because you're buying into a system or investing into a system. Restoration is a massive industry, but many people overlook it is as the business opportunity around it. So, Dan, how big is the restoration industry, and why did you decide on restoration?
Yeah, but it's a great question. People don't realize how massive the restoration industry is. It's a bit of a sleeping giant. And the reason why is when you get a fire or you have an ambulance barreling down the street, you hear it and you see it. Water is a little bit more silent. Water restoration is a $17 billion industry, and the entire restoration industry is almost 300 billion. 210 billion commercially annually and 80 billion residentially, and it's expected to continue to grow. So massive industry. There's 14,000 water damage cases a day in America.
You talk about that you're looking for candidates as prospective franchise owners, and they should be the mayor of the town. Explain what that means to somebody that's looking at different franchise opportunities. What does that mean, the mayor of the town?
I think if you're going to be in the home services business, which is the people business, whether it's restoration or any other home service, I think you need to want to and enjoy being out there in the community, networking, building relationships. To me, the best business owners, they hire great people and they get out of the way and they focus on the most of their energy on recruiting, on building relationships with referral partners, and on selling to homeowners, etc. I'm not saying going out there and door knocking, but they should want to be that kind of figurehead of the business, spending a lot of time on creating the brand awareness around their personal brand.
You've worked all like in all different sectors within franchising. What's the biggest mistake you see franchise candidates, and not just talking about your brand, but when they're coming into, hey, I want to own a business, what should they really look out for? There's like not every franchise is the same. Just because it's a franchise doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Like what is your process that you would tell somebody to go through to vet out these particular business models to see what would actually be a good fit and what will most likely help them become successful?
Yeah. I like to use an analogy for anyone that has kids. When you have a baby, you've become a full-time parent, right? Parenting is now your life. Even when you're at work, you're thinking about it. When you're not at work, you're together with your family. Business ownership doesn't necessarily mean every second you're working, but it's just like having that baby. You now need to be thinking about that business 24/7. And I think that's the biggest shift that people don't really realize until they get into business is to be successful, you have to stop thinking about 9 to 6 and you got to start thinking about, again, not always working, but you got to be thinking about your business pretty much all the time, especially in the first 18, 36 months. And so my biggest advice is if you're going to get into business, yes, there are things you can run more semi-involved or less day to day, but you better be ready to be mentally thinking about a business all the time because it's going to take up a lot of your thought space.
A lot of people out there in the industry, they talk about semi-absentee, they talk about executive model, but what I hear you saying is that regardless, yes, you can own this as an executive level where you have a general manager and you build the infrastructure. But what do you think people should realistically understand, depending on what people are telling you? Hey, you can spend 5, 10 hours a week in this business. The reality of it is you need to spend the first 12 months getting to that point if you can, right?
I think it's a lot like a muscle. If you and I know you personally, we've hung out, I've seen you before in the franchise space. I know you work out. If you can do however many, I think you could do like 30 pull-ups in a row, something like that. I can't, right? But if is it genetics? Maybe. But if I were to go practice for a year and come back, I'd probably be able to as well. That is about the operator doing the pull-ups, not the pull-up bar, right? It's the difference of someone being able to do them or not. When I think about running a business semi-absentee or semi-involved, it's a muscle. If you've never owned a business, and you don't really have the management skills to manage blue collar workers, for example. Because a lot of people will say to me, I've managed people. No, you manage college educated people. That's different than blue collar people. And so if you're new to that, it might be a little bit harder. And as you get better at it, it'll get easier. But I really think it comes down to that muscle you're gonna get better at with time.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about also too. I think when people are in the home service industry, a lot of that really comes down to top of funnel lead generation. Why don't you talk about like where you think you guys excel as far as that? Because your background is in obviously like marketing and lead gen, and you have a very good support system. Because I think that like is one of the most important parts of a business model too. Is right top of funnel, and then also the fulfillment and all the KPIs behind it. Can you talk about the infrastructure to get your candidates or your now franchise owners like up to speed quickly? Because I think a lot of people are like, well, how long is it going to take me to cash flow as they're exploring franchises? How can you accelerate that, or how can a franchise owner really get into the mindset of how they can get traction the fastest?
I think the biggest thing is understanding that marketing, I think it's expectations first. We do a lot of the setup of the marketing for our franchise owners and really hold their hand on getting things going. Then I think it comes down to just an ongoing education of what it takes. I'll give you a great example. When you first launch your business, first of all, the leads will be not as good because you don't have a lot of five-star reviews. You don't have a lot of experience. Going back to the pull-up example, are you better at something after you do it a bit more? Of course, right? You are not as good when you first open and you start selling on the phone. And so the leads will get better because you'll get better. The leads will also get better over time because you'll have more reviews, you'll have more traction, more visibility. But the biggest thing people have to realize that they often lose sight of is when you spend money on marketing, whether it's Facebook ads to sell a $4 product, a $40 product, a $4,000 product, or a $40,000 product, usually you're going to see returns of like a 3 to 1 or a good 4 or 5 to 1, meaning every dollar I put into the ads, I get $5 back. That's a really good situation. In the beginning, let's say it's 2 or 3. I think when you start a business, you should think about if I get a 1 to 1 return, meaning I didn't lose money, that's already a win. And then it'll go up from there. But what a lot of people lose sight of and don't realize is the first ever amount of money that you spend marketing on, let's say you spend X and you make back Y, that had to pay all your bills. You got to spend a little bit more now because everything after those sunken costs for the month starts to become more profitable, right? And so I think the biggest thing is just educating franchise owners on what it really does take as far as marketing in your business. It's all about understanding that you have to have an abundance mindset. You have to track CAC, which is customer acquisition cost, and you have to be relentless with the marketing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people need to understand that it's like this evergreen thing that you like. Just because your franchise does a lot of marketing for you doesn't mean like you're going to just sit back and get leads. You're going to get some leads, but you have to be gritty. And that's why I said I heard you talk about you really want to somebody who's going to be the mayor of the town, and that's gritty. And I think that comes down to like you got to get out there, shake hands, and kiss babies, and let everybody know what you're doing. That's how you're really going to drive. If you look at your top 25% of franchise owners, that's what they're doing, right? They're out there, they're innovating, they're taking what your systems are, and they're getting out there and meeting everybody they can. That could be a good referral partner. So talk a little bit about the business model in general, because it's almost like, or it is almost like two franchises in one, with the cleaning side and then the restoration side. And the cleaning side could also probably be a little bit of recurring revenue, if I kind of, in my mind, when you're doing these different floor and carpet cleaning type things. Explain to us how that works and the thought process when you were building the brand up, on why that was such a good business model for not just restoration, to have both ecosystems under one umbrella.
Yeah, great question. I mean, to me, business almost always comes down to hitting singles, doubles, and home runs just like baseball. You can't just be focused on large average tickets. You have to have an element of singles that are paying the bills. And so in our business, the floor cleaning is an opportunity to hit singles. We go clean a floor of a home and we get a, $400, $500 average ticket. And then we go clean a commercial account where we can do it over and over and over. And then we go hit a restoration job, which is massive revenue. And I'll tell you a quick story. In my previous business, we were in the lead generation space. And we had a business where we sold leads for, $45, $85, $100, $300, and less money. And then we had another side of our business where we made revenue in larger amounts, 30, 40, $50,000 large amounts from commercial accounts. And I remember the excitement of getting one of those larger amounts of money into the business and turning all my energy away from that boring old $100 times lots of leads and getting excited about those big amounts of money. And 6 months in, the big amounts of money dried up and that recurring money was gone. And I was in a really bad spot. And it was life changing for me because I realized that, those big amounts of money, they're exciting, but it's the little singles that win baseball games, right? You don't win a baseball game just on home runs. And so to me, what we do with floor cleaning is we're building predictable revenue. We're getting out there into the field. We're doing jobs. We're cleaning homes. We're getting the trucks out on the road. And that's leading and feeding to more restoration jobs, which are very profitable, but take a little bit more time to get.
That's awesome. I like the way you broke that down because that makes a lot of sense. Like that's a great thought process, and then those smaller tickets are really helping your infrastructure grow. You're able to bring on more team members to really grow the business, and I think that's a great point. So like you're always gonna, when I look at it that too, and like how many small ticket jobs can one van do a day? They could probably do several, right? And so those small tickets really add up, and then I like that. That's really good. So we got many when we talked as franchise consultants, I'm talking to people from all walks of life. Um, what are you seeing right now as far as people coming into your franchise model? I know you have prior military seems to be a big avatar. 1 out of 7 franchise owners are prior military. I'm seeing that like there's people from sales and medical device sales coming into your system. What advice and what trends do you see people, because there's everybody wants to leave corporate, right? Like that's the kind of mindset I have right now, where it's like people want to. Not everybody will because they have a fear of owning their own business. That's why you guys should all look for franchises, because there's systems and processes. But what advice and kind of like before you get into the advice for somebody looking to transition to owning a business and why franchising might make sense, talk about who you see coming into your system that are the more successful ones and so forth.
Yeah, we certainly love military folk that have, proven an ability to, follow a process and they're disciplined and just great people. We love people from the military. We've also found in our system and in franchising in general, especially in home services, I think med device or pharmaceutical sales reps are fantastic franchise owners, especially in home services. I think actually you brought us a fantastic franchise owner. I was just on a call with him prior to this with our company. And he's doing great. You know why? He's got a high standard for himself. He's disciplined. He's used to selling. I'm going to be a little bit candid here, but when you're in med device as a man, you got to go sell to doctors, and you're competing with like Miss Kentucky that like started doing med device, and you got to go sell a doctor and build rapport based on just really great salesmanship. And now you're going into a business where you got to sell a property manager, and your competition is a restoration guy that didn't even show up shaved with a branded polo, wasn't on time, smelled of cigarettes. I'm stereotyping, but we're dominating markets because our franchise owners, they're sophisticated. Okay. The days of restoration companies getting by being the hometown hero that were unsophisticated, they didn't have the systems, they didn't have the processes, they weren't polished, those days are over. My franchise owners, and hopefully anyone listens if they want to join, that come from these very professional careers, they're dominating because they're able to go and they're able to provide a professional experience to the property manager who then refers us cleaning and restoration jobs. So we love anyone with a professional sales background.
Cool. Um, I actually have a candidate right now that's looking at you and also looking at a painting franchise. And not just like, if you are looking at two industries, one painting, one restoration, and what your business model does. What's kind of like, just because I talk to him, weekly, and I can't make a decision for him. He ultimately has to make the decision of what industry makes more sense. What's your kind of feel of like the pros and cons of painting versus what you guys do, from like if you're just kind of putting it together?
Sure. Well, and listen, I think the benefit of working with someone like yourself is I'm sure any brand you have them with are top notch because you know the top brands. I think painting's a great option. I think my mindset on painting is I think painting's an easier business, if I'm being candid. I think it's easier to start. I conceptually I can understand stroking a paintbrush on a house a little bit more than water restoration. Water restoration is also simple, but I think it takes a little bit more time to scale. I think the restoration business has the lucrativity though. I think when I look at like a lucrative industry and I look at like high average unit volumes, whether it's a Voda, a Serve Pro, a different franchise or non-franchise, I think restoration notoriously has really strong unit economics. And so I guess, it really comes down to simpler business, scalable. Painting's great. And there's commercial element to it too. And then you've got water restoration, more of an emergency service. I think a lot of times it comes down to what they feel called to do and what they want to, what they feel excited about too, to a degree.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. But yeah, the more when I think about talking with him, it's like, I think also he has to put weight on the fact that he's going to be doing these cleaning jobs too, which like I got to kind of, when I'm talking to him, I'm like, that's like your immediate cash flow in the business. And I think that's a good point. Now I'm glad we're doing this interview. Like that is, it's a dynamic process no matter what. Like you worked as a franchise broker back in the day. You've done various things. Your team's done various. You're probably one of the best marketers in the franchise space, meaning like you understand marketing, like you provide more value, like even things like this,
I
right? Like
love it.
I got a plaque from you guys. You guys actually, out of everybody I've met in the industry so far, you guys are the ones that stick out in my mind, and you guys are the ones that have the best. This is a true like when a candidate comes to you, I think you have the best process to get them educated and to see if Voda is a good fit or not. Period. And so my question now kind of goes into, look, you guys are the fastest growing restoration franchise. You guys exploded with your growth, right? Like absolutely exploded. You have over 800. You have over 80 franchise owners, and how many units? Like lots of units, and so it's all growing. So now that you're like, you're still pretty young company, even though you guys started, restoration in 2014, right? 2014, 2009, somewhere around there. Your original company, the corporate location or flagship. Um, Now that you've grown so fast, right? Like, what do you see over the next 2 or 3 years? Because now it's developing the franchise, the franchisee, right? So what's your kind of goals? How are you going to use AI to help boost this? And talk about like your internal KPI tracking system, where you guys stand out in this business.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, I would tell you I'm a big fan of athletes and entrepreneurship and high performance. I think Voda was in its preseason in 2024. We were warming up. Um, 82 franchise owners award. It's fantastic. I'm on a mission until almost every one of them, or I can't control their every one of them, but their results is what matters, right? And them being happy and successful and over the time. And so, we're really focused. What I'm focused on is exactly what you just talked about, which is giving value at an extreme level. My 2025 commitment is to give away everything I know online to teach people the things I know and help them, and then empower my franchise owners to understand this way of marketing, that if they give way more than they get, eventually that equation will tip on its head and they'll get more than they gave. You got to give first. And so I try to teach our franchise owners, and this is for anyone in any home service business or really any business, go find the people that can influence your business and give them so much opportunity, so many offers, so many things that they would be crazy not to give you business back. But don't like guilt them into it. Don't ever say it. Just keep giving. Give. And then boom, next thing you know, you'll get a great opportunity. Give 51% of the time more than you get, and eventually that number will just increase.
It's funny because I was on when Alex Ramosi did that book launch, he had like 500,000 people online, never been done before. And he was giving away all these things like, hey, I want you to sign up for this, you get all this stuff, right? And because he gave me so much value over the years and I never paid for anything, I'm like, it was funny because he's doing this pitch and I thought he was getting ready to say, okay, it's going to be, $1,500 or whatever. I literally took out my credit card on Zoom and I was about to put it in. And he said, you know what? I'm not even going to charge you for this. And I thought he gave us all this value. And so you're right. That marketing mindset, like that's what I do. I put on these events, right? I get thousands of people to register. And so like if I think business owners need to understand marketing. I think it's like in essence, if you can get top of funnel right, then and then you get with the right franchise system that can track. Talk about your tracking your KPIs. I like how how you track a lot or most of everything that the franchise owner would need. Which that's important because like me, I'm not good at my KPIs. I'm not good at tracking. So talk about how you do that. I think that's you excel in that as well.
Yeah, everybody talks about tracking and reporting, but they never talk about how. They always say you got to track your KPIs, but no one tells you how. So what I can tell you is it's really hard. um, Sorry, I'm going to give you a story and then I'm going to tie it into this. So we have a dashboard called Scoreboard, which tracks all kinds of analytics and metrics and key performance indicators. I'm a big believer in KPIs, and then I'm a big believer in what's called TIF, the important few. So you want to track the important few KPIs. And I'll tell you a little story on a personal note, because it's an interesting one. So I've been trying to lose weight candidly all year, all last year, trying to get back in shape. And I tried to do everything and nothing was working. And I was living in fantasy land that I was doing the right thing. So I finally hired a coach. And I hired the coach, and the coach asked me, "Where do you want to be?" I was like, "Oh, I want to weigh, this amount of weight." She said, when did you weigh that?" Great question. And I was like, "Oh, like not that long ago." She's like, "When?" I'm like, "Hmm." The more I thought about it, it's 2016, man. It's 10 years ago. That's how much of a I was this amazing shape in 2016. It's 2025. And when was it, by the way? I was in my 20s. So, of course, what I'm doing now isn't going to work the same way as that did. And the first thing we did was we bought an Aura ring, a weighted scale that tracks body weight, and a macros tracker for the scale. And the goal was to lose 10 pounds in 10 weeks. 1 pound a week. That's sustainable. Okay. So 10 pounds in 10 weeks, 1 pound a week. You got to have a 3,500 calorie deficit per week to hit that goal. I was like, all right, that's like 10 pounds, 10 weeks, 1 pound a week, 3,500 calorie deficit. That's 500 a day. Then you got to go buy the meal. And literally every meal, every day, if I finish the day, I do the workout and eat the meals, I have a 500 calorie deficit. If I do that for 7 days, I hit the 3,500. It's all about those numbers. Your business is the same exact thing. If you can understand that if you are doing, 20,000 a month in your business, and if you could just do $500 more a day, 5 days a week, you'd be at 30,000, and maybe your break even's X. And you have to understand every little metric matters. And so the reason I tell you that story is we built a dashboard called Scoreboard, which pulls all the data from all of our different technologies and sources of truth into one dashboard where people can see. What I will say is it's been a journey because my original scoreboard wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. We just revamped it, and it's actually in the middle of coming out right now. But yeah, dashboards are so important. I think the beauty of a good franchise is you get that kind of just pre-built into your business.
And where do you see like technology going? Do you see any changes right now with like AI coming into play, like more and more prevalent, and like we don't know where we're going to be in 3 to 4 years with AI as far as the automations, the chatbots. I know you can have AI callers now, like doing lead gen. I mean, are if what do you think the biggest shift will be for home service industry as far as technology?
Oh man, I mean AI exactly. AI is a tool, right? I mean, I say if you don't learn AI, it's like living in the '90s and not learning about the internet. Like AI is coming whether you like it or not. I don't think AI is coming to take your job, but I do think the person who learns AI will take your job, right? If you have a great job and you want to be successful, like I think about my career, if I want to continue to grow, I got to learn AI. In home services, I think conversational intelligence will be the biggest thing. So text message bots, voice bots, everything related to communicating in real time. My favorite analogy is on the websites. So most people, when you go to their website, and I'll be candid, we don't have this either, and this is something I want to work on. When you go to someone's website and you're there, it's almost like you walked in the shoe store through the doors and then no one talks to you. They're in the back of the store, like hanging out with the employees. When people go to a website, we need to get to a point where we're talking to them right then and there when they're in the shoe store, right? Think of the sales rep coming up. So when I think about these chatbots that start talking to you and immediately engage you and start working on booking an appointment without you even filling out a form, I think that's the future.
I love that. Yeah, there's a lot of changes happening. Here's another. This is a good question I had actually written down. I normally don't write questions down, but I knew you were coming, so I wanted to be prepared. So, what's one thing you wish more people knew about the restoration business before they got started in the business? What's one thing you think that if anything that they should be aware of day one that they're maybe unaware of, like the industry or something about the business?
It will be way harder than you think and then more rewarding than you could ever imagine. I don't mean just monetary. I mean, like, it'll be way harder than you think, but then you'll come out of this year or year and a half or whatever it takes to get to like, you know, establishment, and you'll be just a better person. Like, man, when I think about some of the journeys to start this business, I put all my capital into Voda. There was a point where I almost went, into really bad financial situation. And who I had to become to be where we are today is the greatest gift that voters give me. Money is it's not the vote. It's the person I had to become to get voted to where it is today. And I'm so excited about where I'll go. You know what I mean? Like, business is the ultimate self-development program. It's 24/7. It never stops. And if you want to just become a better person overall, I highly recommend getting into business.
That's awesome. I love that, and that's what I love about your team. It's like you don't like sugarcoat it. You want the mayor of the town. It's a gritty business. Like, to me, that tells you like, hey, we're looking for a certain person to be a partner in our business. That's awesome, right? Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to get into franchising, and it's going to be easy, and like it's not, right? That's why there's some franchisees that fail. It's not everybody wins just because you're buying into a system or investing into a system. Um, Kind of wrapping up the conversation, like if you closed your eyes 10, 15 years from now, where do you see yourself? Where do you see where do you see yourself? I'm curious because you've had a lot of entrepreneurial experience in a relatively, young, you're still in your mid early 30s, right? So being very successful, obviously you've taken some punches in the face before, but you've been ultimately been very successful. If you close your eyes today, 10 or 15 years from now, where do you see your business? Where do you see, like, I have kind of an idea where you'll be, but I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I mean, I'd be lying to tell you we don't want to be the household name in home services. When I think about if you want something done, like if you want to do it yourself, you go to Home Depot. If you want it done for you, you go to you go to Voda. Like, I mean, I want to dominate in the home services space. One of the things that we did that I think was very intentional is our brand is positioned to attract the homeowners of today, but it's really positioned to attract the Gen Z and the generations after. Our branding is about the homeowner that's coming. We were very intentional about where the homeowner market is going. And so the Voda brand and the way that it's been positioned and the way that I think millennials and Gen Z and beyond will be attracted to the brand that we're building is where we're going to really be able to see that 15 years from now. It's funny. What's like a household name store you went to as a kid?
Yeah, I would probably say as a kid, I don't know, because I'm 47. I'm kind of old now. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, I remember Kmart, right? And most Kmart's, yeah, they've shut down most of them.
Yeah, well, that's a bad part of the story. But like when I think about like I want to be the brand that like kids now when they're older know about, if that makes any sense. Like we're gonna be known by these kids that are growing up and they're teenagers and Voda was in their house. Like that's what I want to be. And when they're 50, Voda was like a foundational, or hopefully it still is a foundational name. I'm very driven by the want and to be the largest restoration company that we can be. Again, you caught me with some C4, so I'm a little extra confident today. C4 energy drink, but yeah, that's where I want to be. And the real answer, though, in all seriousness, I love what we're doing. Um, I sold my previous business to private equity. I didn't really like it, in the sense of like I felt very unfulfilled. I hope to do this for the rest of my life because I think that you could do a lot in 30 years, a lot more than you could do. People overestimate what they could do in a year and underestimate what they could do in a lifetime. So I just want to do the same thing for a really long time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Would you ever want to own would you ever want to have more brands like down the road? Obviously not right now, but is the thought process like in a big picture, would that be something you did obviously 5, 10 years out? Would you consider having a portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, the vision is to build a platform of brands. I'm a really big believer. I know I do speak fast and I move fast, but at the core, I believe in a concept of slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And so we really want to develop Voda, the restoration and cleaning brand, at its fullest capacity. And when it's time to launch another brand is when we feel like the general franchise base is ready for the next brand. Because my goal and hope is that our franchise base are the first adopters of our next brand, and they're able to be a multi-brand, multi-unit owner, and then we roll it out to the nation. And so I want to see like the vast majority of my franchise base hit maturity before we roll out the next one. But yes, absolutely, we do plan to launch multiple brands in the next 5, 10 years.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was awesome, Dan. I appreciate you coming. You're a go giver. You provide, I think, more value than anybody in this industry that I've met so far. Because you're doing lead gen webinars for franchise consultants. You're doing public facing things for people looking to get into home service industry, looking to get into franchising. You have a wealth of knowledge because you've been in different aspects of this industry. Um, and so, yeah, I just want to compliment you on what you do. And I plug into your lead gen. Obviously, I love lead generation for what I do. Yeah, I mean, you're always posting into the different groups. You're always providing content to people, whether they're in the franchise industry or they're, candidates or people that want to get into business. So I appreciate the fact that you do that because I don't see many people in our space doing that. And so that I think that's like another thing I see, like where you really excel is that you understand that, like, hey, like if you want people to learn about the industry, you have to be a public figure, and you've done a great job of that over the last couple of years.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You do a great job at it too, man. I see you got a huge audience, so keep up the great work. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah. All right, guys, reach out. My contact details are below if you want to explore franchises. I usually always do a territory check for Voda for you. If you're looking at home services, it's definitely a brand I'm always going to show. I can't say enough about their whole process. That at the end of the day, when I take a candidate through the franchise journey, I go, look, there's two outcomes. One is we align you with the perfect business and you invest in that business. Number two is that you decide a franchise or a business isn't right for you. That's all we ask for. And we ask that you're committed to the process. That's it. So, guys, if you want to kick the 9 to 5 business to the curb, which many of you do, because I'm on calls all day long, then, go down below or go to bookwithbo.com and let's get started. Thanks, Dan. We'll see you soon. Hey guys, Bo Eckstein here. If you enjoyed what you saw, please subscribe to this channel. We talk all things financing. I've been in the lending industry for over 20 years, and I'm happy to answer your questions and provide great content.